Hello and welcome to Year 9 Options Evening. Typically this is an event like many others in our school calendar that would allow us to have you here face to face in our Burgess Hall, but unfortunately due to the restrictions and the pandemic we are once again virtual. Each time I stand in front of a camera I do hope that the next time that we have to do events like this that we will actually have you here at school with us. So this evening's event will introduce you to some key members of staff, some of whom you will already know quite well. First of all, there's Mr. O'Reilly, our head of Year 9, who will talk to you about the current situation in Year 9, how the options process will work through Year 9 and what to expect. We're then going to introduce you to Mrs. Pike, our head of careers and our senior careers advisor here at school. She's going to talk to you about what she's going to offer and how we can actually support your son or daughter moving forward through their options choices. And then I have Mr. Sewell, our deputy head, who'll be talking to you about the curriculum timetable side of the options process. At King Henry VIII School, we are really proud of our academic results and our academic excellence. We start from a real position of strength. Our 3-year average for external examinations at GCSE from 2016 to 2019 is as follows. 35% of all of our grades at GCSE were A stars, 9s or 8s. 61% of all of our grades at GCSE were AA stars, 9s, 8s and 7s. Then if I move into the centre assessed grading process that we used last year, where no external examinations took place due to the coronavirus pandemic, 47% of all of our GCSE grades were 9s and 8s, while 67% of all our GCSE grades were 7 to 9, 9, 8 and 7. Our grades last year were higher, but not out of line with our predictions for what we had expected the students to achieve had they sat the examinations themselves. We really pride ourselves on our teacher knowledge of subjects. We have a number of members of staff who work on examination boards, and we really know what we're doing when it comes to GCSEs, when it comes to teaching and learning, classroom pedagogy, and making sure that your son or daughter are prepared as best as possible for their GCSE examinations. I'd now like to talk to you about the options process and the timelines that are involved. Last week, Year 9 had an assembly from Mr. Sewell in which he introduced the options process to them, and you should have received the options booklet and options forms issued earlier this week. We then obviously have our options evening this evening, where you will find out further information, heading into our parents' evening for pupils and parents, which will take place next week. The options deadline is then on the 12th of February. Further detail about each of these stages will come in the rest of the presentation this evening. GCSE grades are important, and you need to make sure that you choose the correct subjects for you. You will hear lots of advice from people following me about this, but I want to give you some headline information first. Firstly, GCSE grades are the only common grades that universities actually have to distinguish between their applicants. These grades are going to follow you for the rest of your working life, which could be up to 60 years or less if you're fortunate. And then in regard to particular subject combinations for universities, it's worth noting that University College London require a grade 6 at GCSE in English language, maths, and also a modern foreign language. And finally, many competitive degree courses require 5 or 6 GCSE grades at grade 8 or 9. Many parents have already spoken to me about the impact that the merger with Bablake is going to have on Year 10 and 11 on your son and daughter's GCSEs. This evening I've asked Mr. Wright to come along as project lead, firstly to introduce himself to you and also to give you some information in regard to the merger, specifically for Year 9 students going forward.
My name's Andrew Wright. Now, some of you already know that I used to be head of Bablake and am now heading up the merger, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to introduce myself. One of the things that I was hoping to do this half term was spend time getting to know parents, and then of course we went into lockdown, so that's made it much more difficult. I am based at King Henry's now, so if you want to talk to me, you can get in contact with me through Henry's, and certainly as we come out of lockdown, I'm going to get a chance to speak to many of you. In particular, I want to talk to you about how the merger affects GCSEs. Now, you know that we announced that the merger would take place, that the movement of pupils would take place in September 22. Now, if that happens, and that there is a big if there, one of my jobs over the next weeks, months, is to make sure that I communicate to parents very, very clearly about that transition, because I know a number of you had concerns over that. But if it does happen, it will only happen when the buildings are ready, so there are facilities that are appropriate, and we will not rejig all of the option classes. So if your son or daughter is starting with a teacher doing a particular course next year, that course will continue for 2 years. That's the only fair way of doing it. And where possible, it would stay with the same teacher. There's always the occasional change of teacher between years 10 and 11, but that's due to staff leaving and coming. In general, we try to keep people consistent over the 2 years, and that would continue in spite of the merger. So that's all from me. Enjoy the rest of this presentation, and I look forward to getting to know many of you over the next few months. Thank you.
I'll now hand over to Mr. O'Reilly, Head of Year 9, to give you some information and some advice on the options process going forward through the rest of Year 9.
Good evening. I'm Mr. O'Reilly, the Head of Year 9, and I've been the head of the year group since the start of Year 8. I've gotten to know the children well over that time, and the strengths and positive contributions they make are something I'm particularly proud of. So the present situation is a very positive one. Grade cards and reports from teachers tell me lots of things about the positive work that goes on in lessons, progress is being made, that the year group is growing up both academically and socially. They are a very positive year group, and I have on a number of occasions commended them this year on the way they've handled the transition, first to the lockdown in Year 8, then when we returned to school in September, the way they handled themselves dealing with the new COVID restrictions in a very mature manner, and again with the return to a lockdown in January. They have been very positive in the way they've engaged, the way they've tried to work with their teachers and each other to ensure a good learning environment and one that is friendly and positive. So when it comes to choosing options, as you've already heard this evening, there is a programme we use to support the children, and conversations will go on informally with children between their form tutors and themselves, and also with me, with potentially Mr. Sewell, with Mrs. Pike, about what they are doing and about how they go about doing this. There's lots of information sources that the children can access, including teachers, parents, older brothers and sisters or friends, Mrs. Pike, and it is important that they take time to listen and reflect on what is being said to them. Parents' evening in particular next week will provide valuable opportunity, and I again strongly encourage pupils to be present at those meetings, to listen to what their teachers are saying, to seek their advice and reflect upon it. The options booklet too will also have valuable information about the nature of the courses. Mrs. Pike, while the children are not going to be going to the careers room in a physical sense, is available to be contacted to talk about things and their plans and ideas at the moment. So what should Year 9 think about? Well, first of all, what do they enjoy doing? What are they good at, and what motivates them? One of the biggest mistakes that can be made is to choose an option subject because you think it will be the best thing, rather than because you enjoy it, because it interests you. So what do I mean by that? I mean that don't choose a subject because you think you have to do it to get where you want to be, even though you don't like it. If you don't like it, that should be something that is making you consider whether the path that you see yourself going on is the right one for you. Obviously, you can talk to people, Mrs. Pike, myself, your form tutors, about that. But enjoyment is absolutely key to success at GCSE. If you enjoy a subject, you will be encouraged to participate in it. You will have that determination to succeed. if you don't enjoy it, it's very hard to maintain the effort necessary. Do check on what requirements there are for particular courses or routes into careers that you are interested in, but bear in mind, if you don't enjoy something, you aren't as likely to achieving it as if you do. And additionally, I think it's worth reflecting that these are your options, Year 9. You need to make the choice about what is best for you. Some things to remember not to do. Don't choose options based upon what your friends are choosing to do. You won't necessarily be in the same class as them, even if you choose the same subject. And when it comes to the exams, you're not going to be sitting next to each other either. You will be on your own in that exam hall, so choose a subject that you want to do. Don't choose also based on what your parents, your brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, or whoever did. You are an individual. What is it that you like to do? What is it that interests you? Make your choices based on that. Don't also choose options based upon teachers' personalities. You may well enjoy going to a particular teacher's lessons, and you may think, well, I like that teacher, I enjoy spending time with them, I'm not that interested in the subject, but that's okay because I like the teacher. There is no guarantee that that person will be teaching you in Year 10 and 11. Please also don't feel pressured by your teachers to take their subject. As a history teacher, obviously, I want lots and lots of people to take history because I am passionate about that subject and I want others to share in that passion. But I wouldn't want someone who really doesn't get much out of history, who doesn't really enjoy it, to take the subject and then burden themselves with it for the next 2 years. Your teachers will not be offended if you don't take their subject. By all means, talk to them at parents' evening about your potential and what the course would involve, but don't feel pressured to take their subject. So looking to the future, even when you have made your options choices, you will still need to continue to work hard in all your subjects at Year 9 before you start your GCSEs. Our expectations are high, as you well know. You are going to have end-of-year exams. We are going to expect you to perform in those exams, not to have said, well, I'm not taking a subject, so I'm going to ignore it. And the skills that you develop in those courses, even if you aren't taking them, will be transferable. I'll use history as an example again. The skills you are learning, many of them are around the analysis of information and data. Those skills can be transferred to a range of other subjects. You may not take history, but the skills you learn in history will benefit you elsewhere. This is true in all subjects. Furthermore, the mental toughness of continuing with something that you've chosen to give up at a later date is an important characteristic. You want us to be able to say in the future that you are a determined and purposeful individual. So the rest of Year 9 is about building on your strengths and identifying and improving your weaknesses. In Year 10, you will be in new teaching groups. You will make new friends, people you haven't mixed with really before. You'll have new teachers. You'll get to know them. You'll get to work in a different way. GCSE lessons in many subjects start to look a bit different from the lessons you've been used to so far in Years 7 to 9. There will be new challenges and opportunities. And many of you will be studying subjects that you've chosen because you want to do them, not because we're making you do them. So it's an exciting future. There's lots of newness, there's lots of challenge, but there's also lots of opportunity. I'm confident that this year group is one that will meet those challenges in a positive and purposeful manner. This year's stumbling blocks can be turned into next year's stepping stones. I think that says everything that is essential in thinking forwards to GCSE courses. So good luck in considering what to take, good luck in making those choices, and good luck with the rest of year 9 as you prepare to take your GCSE courses in year 10. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So, although the decision has to be made by the student themselves, after all, it is them that will have to live with the outcomes of these decisions, there is plenty of support available. Here at King Henry's, we've got a well-established support system in place to help students. They may be feeling anxious, and that's quite natural. These are the first really big decisions that they've had to take by themselves. And while as a careers advisor I would never tell anybody what to do or make those decisions for them, I'm very much present here to support the students with those decisions, to help them think carefully about what their strengths and weaknesses are, perhaps to gently challenge them if they're making assumptions about things, and maybe to provide them with information that might support them with an understanding of what the opportunities are post year 11, post year 13. If students want to sort of talk to me individually, they're very welcome to contact me on Teams. We can arrange a meeting to talk face to face. Equally, they can just message me in chat. Although the careers room is out of action currently, I can still direct them to accurate, good sources of information online, websites that I can fully recommend. I've also sent out a link which you might fancy doing along with your sons and daughters, careers quizzes that will generate ideas and thoughts for you to kind of consider, laugh at, discuss. So maybe have a go at those of an evening if you want to. Essentially, throughout this process, students are consistently advised to use good decision-making principles. I delivered an assembly last week where I went through the sorts of factors and thoughts that I would suggest are important for students to think about, and Mr. O'Reilly has reiterated those this evening. I've been really impressed and pleased that since that assembly on Friday, I've already had quite a number of Year 9 students contact me, asking for information, asking specific questions. Others have asked for the login on the careers quizzes, so there are some that are already cracking on with that, which is fantastic. As well as myself and the staff here at Henry's, I've been in touch with the Year 12 peer support team, and they are all very, very happy to support the Year 9s in this process. It's not so long ago that they were in exactly the same position. So I've literally just put up on the Year 9 Teams chat the contacts that the students have for each tutor group with the Year 12 students. And I've briefed the Year 12s again, so they're giving that consistent message about how to make good, confident decisions. So in summary, don't panic. There's excellent support available. Students should take their time, consider things seriously and take it seriously. Very, very happy to support you and your sons and daughters along this pathway over this term. This half term, my priority is the Year 9s. If there's anything that you want to ask or clarify as parents, the education field changes remarkably quickly, horribly quickly. I will be available at the Parents' Evening next week, but equally if you want to call or message me, that's absolutely fine. Good luck with the decisions, and I hope to speak to some of you very soon. Thank you.
So thank you to Mr. O'Reilly and Mrs. Pike for giving us the information there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about options and the options process. And although you may have had a child through school before, things may have changed since then. So a while ago, 5 to 6 years ago in fact, the national curriculum changed and GCSEs changed quite a lot. So we now have external examination for all GCSEs, and also there's been a change in the grading system from letters to numbers, 9 to 1 in fact. So at Henry's, the GCSE curriculum has IGCSE and GCSEs. The main difference is that IGCSEs are actually written for an international audience, and they give a little bit more flexibility in choosing context, for example. IGCSE subjects at Henry's include maths, science, English, geography, computing and modern languages. In addition, drama and PE have been added to the option choices, and also students have study skills lessons in Year 10 and also in Year 11. A few other things to look out for is that in DT, this is now one subject rather than two, and it's under the banner of product design. You'll also find food preparation and nutrition in the options sheet, and that is a general term for what used to be known as food tech. Computer science now replaces ICT, so you won't find ICT in there either. There are also non-examined subjects at Henry's. These include PSHE, PE, games and study skills. So on to the specifics of the options and the curriculum. As you can see, we've got a core that we've constructed, a set of subjects that every pupil will study, including maths, English language, English literature and the 3 sciences. And that's to ensure that all pupils have a really good base moving on from their GCSEs, almost regardless of which of the subjects they choose. A note on the sciences. The 3 science option is something that's very appropriate for almost every pupil that will come through Henry's. However, it might be the case that we realise toward the end of Year 10 that maybe it's a little bit too much of a stretch, somebody doing the 3 separate sciences, and at that point we may consider looking at altering their curriculum slightly. But this will be for very few pupils in our experience. There are some subjects where there is an element of choice. These include French, German and Spanish. You can choose one or you can choose 2. So beyond those subjects, we also have a curriculum option pool. These include the subjects on your screen now, and you'd be expected to choose 3 from these GCSE subjects. So in summary, you've got compulsory subjects of English, maths and 3 sciences. You've then got options, at least 1 modern foreign language and at least 3 of the humanities, creative arts, languages, classics and computer science. So that takes care of the curriculum and the options for GCSE. Now on to the submission of options. We use tools, and this will be open on Monday the 18th of January. The reason being that it may take us a little while to distribute logins for tools, and we don't want anybody to have an advantage in submitting options earlier than other people can. Logins will be sent by email, and we're also going to include the grade card from December that we've now managed to put together, will be and should be with you shortly. There'll also be a link to the options booklet that's available on the website. We do normally provide this in physical form, but this year, due to constraints of students not being in school, it will only be online for you. When you log on to tools, once you get through a few initial registration pages, you will then find these screens. And these screens allow you to run through your first, second, third, fourth choices. And please make sure that you give consideration to the order in which you submit your choices. The order matters. That indicates to Dr. Hayton, our timetabler, your preference for subjects. And although at Henry's we try and guarantee that students gain the options that they choose, there are some instances, a very small number of instances, where we do look to preference and allocate people to their subjects accordingly. Last year, we had around 98% of all options as people's first option. When you're running through the options choices, please be mindful that you will need to choose at least 1 modern foreign language, as mentioned before, and also you have a limited number of choices of art photography and DT. So, we're expecting the option choices to be submitted by the 12th of February. Once that happens, Dr. Hayton begins to write the timetable, but don't panic. If it's the case you want to change your options, please talk to us. It may be the case that your alternative options are available to you, and we'll work through that with you. So that concludes the information that I was going to give you today in the presentation. I'll hand over now to Mr. Dearden, who will just wrap up for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saul. I hope that this evening has been useful for you. If you do have any questions, then remember your first port of call is your son or daughter's tutor. Then obviously Mr. O'Reilly is head of Year 9, Mr. Saul, the rest of the senior leadership team and myself are here to answer any questions that you may have. I'll repeat what I said earlier as well in terms of Year 9 Parents' Evening next week. If you have any questions, please book an appointment with one of the senior leaders. I'll be there if you want to have any questions in particular about the merger. I wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you very much and goodbye.